I'm so excited to visit Admonitions Scroll in London of the UK. And today, astonishingly, I'm one of their number. I'm in the specially built East Asian Painting Conservation Studio here at the British Museum, where the entire painting is laid out. I couldn't help myself to play hide and seek before the gate at the British Museum. In the living hall, I showed the traditional Chinese good manner to the tourists. I placed my left hand with the right hand, half hiding in the sliver, raised my hand to the forehead, moved my arms from the forehead to the chest, and burned my upper body to 45 degrees, which was used to welcome for guests and friends. Then I made some photos when I walking to the fourth floor. You can stand in the precincts of the Admonitions Scroll from where is in the British Museum in room 91A, which is at the back of the museum at the very top of stairs. Look for the prints exhibitions. Usually, the ancient lady will make good manner behavior when girls or mothers meet each other. The woman will take two hands together and put on their chest between waist, slightly bend the knee, slightly lower the head, eyes slightly down with a sunshine smile on their face. When they finish conversation, they will with a nod and a warmly smile on their face too. I also took leave of this behavior to my friends in British Museum. The story of its creation is a process that brings together artists of different periods. The starting point was a long poem written by the courtier Zhang Huai in 292 AD. About half of the scroll is made up of painted screens, each one divided from the next by lines from the poem. A common theme that's emerged from the objects of this week has been the changing views of what constitutes unacceptable, prior, and different times in world history study has turned into vice versa. About half the scroll made up of painting scenes, each one divided from the next by lines from the poem. And the scroll was slowly unrolled for you. You would have read the poem and then be able to see only one part at a time. And that sense of unfolding is a key part of the pleasure. The frame in front of me now shows these two scenes. A beautiful and seductive woman of the court handmaid approaching the emperor. The billowing robes and red ribbons that she is wearing execute her moment as she flaunts coquettish towards him. But as we look more closely, we can see that she is actually just flattery. She is just being brought up short by the emperor's outstretched arm and head, raised in a compromising gesture of rejection. Her body twists as she abruptly begins to turn away, and on her face is an expression of shocked, throated vanity. At the time that the poem was written, China was in a state of fragmentation, following the trappings of the Han Empire, and the competing forces jostled for supremacy, constantly threatening to through the emperor. The emperor himself was mentally deficient, and so his wife, Empress Jia, had a great deal of power, which she spectacularly misused the period. The poem was written by her courtier, Zhang Huai, who was a minister at court, and according to a writing history of the time, Zhang Huai was increasingly horrified by the way of the Empress and her clan were usurping the authority of her husband. She was jeopardizing the stability of the dynasty and of the state by murder, intrigue, and rituals sexual affairs. Zhang Huai wrote the poem ostensibly to educate all the women of the court, but his real target was of course the Empress herself. He hoped through the inspiring and beautiful form of poetry that he had been able to lead his wayward ruler to a life of moral. Keep an eager guard over your behavior, for then sir happiness will come. Fulfill your duties calmly and respectfully. Thus shall you win glory and honor. That's the poem's content about what Zhang Huai wanted to share. The painting that illustrates this poem also has a high moral purpose and into restoring through the lessons are ostensibly for women. They can also speak to men. When the emperor refused to be seduced by his vain wife, he sets an example of male judgment and strength. It's a really incredibly insightful portrayal of the human interactions which go to governing. Unfortunately, Empress Jia was impervious to the poem's moral message, and she carried on with her scandalous sexual exploits and her murderous activities. Some of the ruthless may have been warranted, since there were rebels stirring up civil war, and ultimately in 300 AD there was a successful coup. She was captured and forced to commit suicide. 100 years later, around the year 400, the court was once again beset by the same old problems. One day, the Emperor Xiao Wudi observed to his favorite consort, "Now that you are 30 years old, it's time I exchanged you for somebody younger." He meant it as a joke, but she didn't take it well, and she murdered him that evening. The court was scandalized. It was absolutely time to remind everybody how to behave by republishing Zhang Huai's poem in a scroll painted by the greatest artist of the day. Now, that message must have been especially important at the time that the poem that this scroll is based on was written, and at the time it was painted because these were times of social chaos. So, what the message is that the woman, even one with greater beauty, must always evince humility. She must always be burdened by rules and never forget her position in relationship to her husband and family. And by doing so, she is a positive and active force in promoting social order. And this brings a kind of pleasure you can never find in European painting. The sense that you were sharing this delight with people from centuries past, that you now are joining the community of decent art loves over centuries who have cherished this painting. For example, the 18th century Qianlong Empire, the contemporary of Zhi III sums up his appreciation of the scroll and that of his predecessors. Gu Kaizhi, picture of the admonitions of the instructress with text. Anti-relic, a travel of divine equally being to the inner place. It was such a travel relic that only very small ideals would ever have been given access to it, and that's true now as well. but for a different reason. The silk that this is painted on suffers greatly exposed to light, and is too delicate to be put on display except very rarely. But thanks to digital imaging, everyone can now share this pleasure, which was once the pleasure of the few, and also we are not allowed to put our own stamp on it. We can all join the Qianlong Emperor and the other people who through the decades have so enjoyed gazing at the Admonitions scroll. The private pleasure of the Chinese imperial court has become universal. In the Admonitions scroll, we found that a lady ought never to exploit the manners or weaknesses of her man. The only time that a lady should put herself before the emperor is to protect him from danger. Another scene in the scroll illustrates a true event when a ferocious black bear escaped from its enclosure during a show put on for the emperor and the ladies of his harem. In this particular scene, we first see two harem ladies running away from the wheel, debased about looking back in horror. We next see the emperor seated, frozen with shock, and in front of him, the valiant lady, who has not run away but has rushed to place herself between the emperor and the bear, which is leap at her, snarling fiercely, but the emperor is safe. This picture tells us is a kind of self-sacrifice we need and expect from our great ladies. This scroll became the prized possessions of many emperors, who may have found it to be a useful aid to subdue troublesome wives and mistresses, but who also mirrored its she beauty and used the act of collecting this precious masterpiece as a way of show just how culturally austere and powerful they were. We can know exactly whose cause it was wielded in, because each imperial ruler has left their mark on it, in the form of a stamp carefully placed in the blank spaces around the painting and the calligraphy. Some of the previous owners have also added their own comments to the scroll. To give a conclusion, I want to say some words from my heart. I want to say, welcome to visit Admonitions scroll in the British Museum. You can know more history and traditional Chinese culture from this arts exhibition. You will also know some famous artists in ancient China. This knowledge and cultural information would support you make more Chinese friends in UK. On the other hand, if you want to make business with Chinese, it also can help you to understand the Chinese business model and the Chinese business process. So I trust that you can make good business between China and the UK.